I had a pretty nice schedule on Dark Shadows. I usually did about 2 shows a week. I think that was my guarantee, but I'm not sure. So it wasn't like a day-to-day as Jonathan Frid and some of the other actors worked every single day. That's very, very grueling. Doing 2 or 3 days a week is really quite a luxury and really quite fun. On the day that you worked, however, it was intense. And I always used to think that it was like a little summer stock production. And I mean that in the very best way. I mean that from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, you did an entire production. Well, maybe it was like a Broadway show. In other words, in that compressed time, 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, you did everything that you would have done in 3 weeks, if you did a Broadway show, 3.5 weeks, or 6 days if you did a summer stock show. And it was wonderful. I mean, it was so intense. And there was maybe just the first week or two, I used to worry, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get this done by 3:30? How can we possibly do this? And it would always work. At 3:30 to 4 o'clock, we taped and it was done. And so I think it was only 2 or 3 weeks, I said, relax, it's going to work. Because I would worry maybe about the costumes, about the makeup, about this. It was none of my business. The costume people worked it out. The makeup people worked it out. Everybody worked it out. And it always was amazing to me. And in fact, I brought that into my life. Sometimes I say, I only have 8 hours to do this huge thing. And I say, wait a minute. We did a whole show in 8 hours. A whole show that still 35 years later is playing. So you can do it. You know, for years I thought I was not a soap opera type because I thought I was much too dramatic. And soap operas were very realistic, so to speak. Very kind of dull, you know, little pauses and stuff like that. And when I was cast in Dark Shadows, I realized when I looked around at all the other actors, they were all stage actors. The best of them were stage actors, and they were bigger than life. Because you did have to be bigger than life on Dark Shadows. It was not a peeking through the keyhole natural drama. So my stage experience, I had, let's see, about 4 Broadway shows before I went into Dark Shadows. And I'd been on the stage. I mean, everything that, from the moment that I was a kid and wanted to be an actor, I never even thought about television or movies. It was just the stage. So theater was my, interest. And so that's where I developed. And absolutely, you are bigger in the theater than you are on television. But in Dark Shadows, you could be bigger than life, and be totally acceptable and realistic and right. In fact, if you weren't dramatic enough, I don't think it worked. So therefore, I think the style of Dark Shadows was a highly dramatic, over the top, perhaps. Some people call it over the top. I don't call it over the top. I call it theater. And that's what Dark Shadows was true theater. Well, Dark Shadows was an interesting kind of show because in any other soap opera, if you were killed, that was it. Goodbye, over, end of your life on the show. And of course, I didn't know one way or the other when I was killed as Eve. It wasn't traumatic because I immediately went into a show with Fanny Flagg. We went off and did a stage play, and that was great. And when I came back and was finished with it, I had a call from my agent and said, there's a part on Dark Shadows they want you for. It's Jenny Collins. I said, oh, oh, that's great. So I didn't even have to audition after that. I mean, once you had auditioned for Dark Shadows and they liked you and you played the character and you were killed and they brought you back, you never had to audition again. So I went back to the show, and I then discovered, I think Leela Swift or someone, one of the directors said to me, this is a repertory company, and it doesn't matter how many times you're killed. If we like you, you'll come back as another character. So then when Jenny, Crazy Jenny, was killed, I said, I'll probably come back as some other character someday. And I did. Jenny Collins was a wonderful character. She was totally the opposite of Eve. And I love, as an actor, I love to play different kinds of roles. I don't like to play the same thing. I don't like to be pigeonholed into something. So when Jenny Collins came along, he was this most vulnerable woman, really soft and totally crazy, of course. And I loved playing crazy because you could do anything that you possibly dreamed of, you could do. And nobody could say to you, you know what, that's not real. I don't believe that. I said, hey, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Of course it's real. That's real for my crazy mind. And in fact, fairly recently, my agent, Mary Haggerty, called me and said, or I called her, I forget on which, but she said, oh, we have Dark Shadows on in the office, and you're on killing, or trying to kill, Joan Bennett, running after her with a pair of scissors. I said, oh, I'm at home, so let me turn that on. So I turned it on, and I watched it. Oh, and I had such a ball watching it. I thought, this is really terrific. I couldn't even remember how much fun it was until I saw it. And when it was over, I called her and I said, listen, call me if you ever find some character that's crazy, because I would love to go back to show business and play a crazy lady. Because, you know, now I'm a photographer and that's what I do. But if there was a crazy lady character, I would come back and do it.